escort His Excellency.
The Assembly will now hear a statement by His Excellency Tammam Salam, President of the Council of Ministers of the Lebanese Republic. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I have the pleasure in welcoming the President of the Council of Ministers of the Lebanese Republic, His Excellency Tammam Salam, and I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Mr. President, it gives me pleasure at the beginning to congratulate you for presiding over the work of the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I seize this opportunity to thank Mr. Sam Kutesa, former Foreign Minister of Uganda, for the efforts he exerted throughout his presidency of the 69th session of the General Assembly. On the 70th anniversary marking the establishment of the United Nations, which my country had the honor of contributing to setting up its charter, I would like to stress Lebanon's commitment to fully assume its role as an active member within the international community in order to fulfill the noble aims that were unanimously approved by all nations, chiefly safeguarding international peace and security, the right of peoples to self-determination, and the respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all human beings. Mr. President, we speak about the fundamental rights of human beings, and in our countries, in our region, this concept is withering day after day under the pressure of wars, putting back in the face of an ever-growing obscurantism hidden under the veil of religion and totally dissolving when facing the barbarism of the colonization practiced by the State of Israel, which seeks to hide under a modern and democratic cloak. Under the eyes of the whole world, nations are being disintegrated in our region. Millions are leaving their homes, wandering away to the unknown. This is a land. This is a land, the 3-year-old child, which the whole world saw earlier this month in his eternal rest after he was washed ashore. His tragedy sums up the prevailing fundamental human rights in our region. His picture describes the story of a tormented people drifting out in the seas to nowhere, jam-packed on the sidewalks in cities and train stations, waiting for a permission, a visa, or simply a meal. The narrative has gone far beyond any political, military, and legal framework to mutate into a major question related to the present and future of humanity. We have all followed the efforts undertaken by some European countries in order to accommodate additional numbers of refugees on their territory. These efforts are rooted in the cultural and civilizational heritage stemming from the bitter experiences and the devastation of wars. But we still believe that the best solution to the problem, and the least expensive for Syria and the neighboring countries and the entire world, is to tackle the tragedy directly and deal with it at its root causes. Lebanon reiterates its call to the international community, especially all prominent powers in the world, to rise above reluctance and lingering and stop fighting with Syrian blood and on Syrian territory. We urge them to end the ongoing massacre there by fostering a political solution that safeguards the country's unity, independence, and territorial integrity while fulfilling the Syrian people's aspirations for a free and dignified life. Mr. President, this call does not stem only from the links of neighborhood, kinship, history, and common interests between the Syrian and Lebanese peoples, but also from Lebanon's firm interest in ending the Syrian crisis due to the heavy burden of massive waves of displacement dubbed by the United Nations itself as a quote-unquote national disaster. If Europe, I repeat, if Europe, with its sizable capacities and generous humanity, has been confused at the sight of thousands of displaced people erupting suddenly in its cities, Lebanon, with its limited space and scarce capacities, has been hosting over the past 4 years of 1.5 million displaced Syrians, amounting to 1/3 of its population. Thus, the public infrastructure and hosting communities in Lebanon have been exhausted to the maximum at a time of steadily declining international assistance because of a soi-disant donors' fatigue. While Lebanon upholds its international obligations, it reiterates its appeal to donor countries, urging them to fulfill their commitments, rather to increase their financial contributions, providing direct assistance to the public institutions and the Lebanese hosting communities, according to the response plan launched by Lebanon in collaboration with the United Nations last December. We firmly stress the principle of shared responsibility and burden sharing among countries, underlining the importance of establishing safe areas or buffer zones for refugees in Syria, or setting up some gathering centers on the borderline. Mr. President, the problem of the displaced population is just only one facet of the many negative repercussions Lebanon has endured as a result of the war in our neighborhood. Perhaps the most daunting consequence of this conflict is terrorism that claimed steep sacrifices. It is no secret that for more than a year now, a group of our military forces is still held by terrorist groups, and we are still exerting tremendous efforts to free them. We have succeeded in addressing this scourge based on a firm political resolution and an efficient security action. Our people has proven to the world that Lebanon is not an incubator of terrorism that is meddling with some regional countries under the cover of Islam, the religion of tolerance, love, and moderation. The increasing responsibilities assumed by our military and security apparatuses in the fight against terrorism has fostered our determination to strengthen these forces as a main pillar of security, stability, and civil peace in the country. Lebanon renews its commitment to fight terrorism in all its forms, stressing the need to address the roots of this affliction, and at the same time reaffirms its readiness to cooperate in the framework of joint international effort undertaken by the Security Council to eradicate terrorism and its sources of financing. Mr. President, despite the many political crises our country is enduring, chiefly the vacuum in the presidency of the Republic, Lebanon is proud of being a paragon of diversity and an oasis of coexistence between members of various religions and sects at a time of surging Middle Eastern events threatening the social, cultural, and religious diversity. We consider that safeguarding the Lebanese entity is tantamount to shielding a vital remnant of pluralism and socio-economic dimensions, calls for a joint decision from both brethren and friends to keep Lebanon away from regional polarization, help the Lebanese people in putting an end to the current vacuum and paralysis, and bolstering the work of the constitutional institutions by electing a new President of the Republic without further delay. Mr. President, we followed with great interest the recent agreement between Iran and the 5 permanent Security Council members and Germany, and it is our hope now that this development will open a new page in international relations and will mark the beginning of an improvement in the regional environment, which will reflect positively on the political situation in Lebanon. We consider that the baseline requirement for a successful and normal relationship among the countries in the region for the best interest of their peoples is commitment to the good neighbors policy, respect of state sovereignty, and non-interference in their internal affairs or security and stability manipulation. Mr. President, while commemorating the 9th anniversary of Security Council Resolution 1701, Lebanon reaffirms its commitment to all the provisions of this resolution, based on the belief that it will strengthen stability and security in southern Lebanon and will contribute to extending the state's authority over its entire territory. Lebanon reiterates its call to the international community to compel Israel to cease its violations of Lebanese sovereignty, cooperate with UNIFIL, and I take this occasion to express our thanks to UNIFIL command structures, troops, and all participating countries in order to demarcate the rest of the Blue Line and withdraw immediately from the northern Ghajar area, Shab'a Farms, and Kfar Shuba Hills. Mr. President, Lebanon denounces Israel's continued occupation of Palestinian land and its blockade of the Gaza Strip, and we call upon the international community to compel it to lift this inhumane for a decent living for the Palestinians. We condemn the repeated Israeli attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque and warn of their serious repercussions, while we hold Israel responsible for the failure in reaching a peaceful settlement to the conflict based on the two-state solution. In the meantime, we call upon the Security Council to issue a decision to resume the negotiations in order to end the occupation within a specified time frame on the basis of Security Council Resolutions 242, 338, the Madrid Terms of Reference for Peace, and the Arab Peace Initiative. While Lebanon rejects the resettlement of refugees on its territory, it stresses the right of the Palestinians to return to their homeland according to the United Nations relevant resolutions. Mr. President, the resettlement of refugees on its territory, It stresses the right of the Palestinians to return to their homeland according to the United Nations relevant resolutions. Mr. President, crises are storming our East that is plagued by many scourges and illnesses. Time has indeed come for the world to mobilize its powers and address them seriously rather than ignoring them and escaping responsibility. Not only because our East is the cradle of the heavenly messages that you all embrace and the source of the alphabet you read, but also because your humanitarian duty commands you to do so, as your undeniable interest requires that you contain the explosion and prevent fragments from reaching your homes. I call upon the countries of the world. Repeat, I call upon the countries of the world to revoke their resignation from responsibility and assume the task of restoring security and stability to our region in order to secure our people's right to a better future. Extend your hands to stop the death toll in Syria, Iraq, Libya, and Yemen, and in the land of peace, Palestine. Extend your hands to restore the glow of the Levantine jewel called Lebanon. Extend your hands to provide the right to our children, as it is the right of your children, to sail in their legitimate dreams instead of sailing in the boats of humiliation and death towards strange shores. I thank you all.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Council of Ministers meeting to continue with the